Hello and welcome to the Dead Unicorn tabletop role-playing game. I'm very comfy in my blanket here in Alaska. My name is Corey. I'm here with Tarek, and we are going to go through our Legend of the Five Rings rewrite, right? Right.
Oh, yeah.
So these are just ideas that we have for perhaps the next edition of L5R, or like homebrew rules that we're creating for ourselves.
Yeah.
We do
You
this.
can come along for the ride for.
We do this most Sundays in the afternoon. So join us. This is I think we're already up to part 10.
Yeah.
What do we got? Yeah, this is part 10. Where did we go wrong? Because I've got a lot of interesting comments, a lot of interesting data on what we've been doing so far, and whether we're even barking up the right tree. Right? Are you ready? Are you ready for some criticism?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, let's get
Tear
to
us
it.
Down.
So we put up a community poll. We put up a community poll, polling you guys saying, "Hey, we're doing this rewrite. We think that combat is a little confusing in the current edition of Legend of the Five Rings. Legend of the Five Rings, the Fantasy Flight Edition is what we're doing. For those of you who just found us in this episode,
Yeah.
So we had three different ideas, or two different ideas really. One is instead of calling things damage, we call them threat. Right? It's a threat system. That way, when you spend fatigue to defend yourself, it doesn't feel like someone's damaging you. It feels like you're being threatened and you have to ward off that threat to stop being damaged.
Yeah.
And we got rid of the damage rating of each weapon and instead just simply said it's 2 points of damage for every for every success. 2 points of threat. 2 points of threat for every success. Then there was the insta-crit system. This is a system by where if you hit somebody, you just critically hit them. You just do you hit pay dirt every time. And then I asked the people if they have a better idea what that would be, and then I asked them, "Hey, do you think the current system is just good? No changes needed." And it's a tie between the insta-crit system and the system is good. Some people did like my threat system. Thank you for everybody who voted for that. I like the threat system mainly because it doesn't veer too far away from the core rulebook, right?
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah, where the insta-crit system, we're going to have to retool almost every single technique and special ability that deals with damage. Every single one of them has to be changed.
But it could be just a simplification of those terms.
But here's the thing. I got three comments under this. Yeah, I got 2 comments. Excuse me, I got 2 comments. The first one is, I'm going to clarify my vote for the system is good. It's inspired by 7C's 5 Sales LCG. Make a minimal change. Change every appearance to the word damage to threat or an equivalent word. They like threat. When you make an attack, you threaten the target. So an attack gets turned to a threatened target. The target gets fatigued to avoid the threat. I have found people suddenly understand how it goes just by changing those terminology. So just a change in terminology, everything else can remain the same. And there's a reply that was, yeah, I thought that, it's just a ditto on that. I was going to talk about the change in terminology too. You nailed it. The second comment is, I've always been a fan of how L5R Fantasy Flight Edition functions in terms of its combat, when everybody is portrayed as these hyper-competent warriors who can only be hit when they've actually been exhausted. with special love for how minions are simplified by instant crit KOs. She does like that word. Oh, I assume Chibi Potato is a girl. I will take your what is it, your avatar, and just use a gender term for that based on that.
Yeah. It's
So
a potato.
I've always been a fan of the pretty simple character makes check, apply fatigue, as it puts more emphasis on the attacker compared to something like D&D 5e where 90% of attack isn't a trait of an attack hit isn't a trait of the attacker, but rather how good the defender is. Especially with how characters can use armor and shields they wear to reduce damage taken by lessening the difficulty in warding off the blow rather than making it harder to hit. So, yeah, great points all around from both of you. People do like, because with an insta crit system, it's harder to keep people in the game longer, especially with that downward spiral of disadvantages. If you get hit once, you get a penalty. If you get hit a second time, there's another penalty on top of it. So the more you're hit, the more of a penalty you're going to get. Whereas in a fatigue situation, you can take a few quote unquote hits. You can be threatened a few times, stay in battle, and not have that downward spiral progression. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Though,
even in the current system, if somebody lands a critical strike on you, there is a good chance that you could be dropped out of the fight in short order, as evidenced by Young So's flailing in that one episode where he got just bonked to hell and back with critical strikes, kind of back to back. It can spiral very quickly out of your control if you're not a competent combatant.
So let's pull this back, right? And let's go to just more general comments, not just on this poll, before we talk about how we want to engage that damage system again. Because I think we should, but let's just kind of pull back and talk about some of these other comments here. I'm trying to see how far back I need to go because we were off last week.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go to this. We did this comment last week. Okay.
Oh, the last time?
Yeah. So this is 13 days ago. This is on our rewrite part 9. So, about grids versus bands. If you copy and paste the rules for movement and range from Free League games, you make L5R much more intuitive with little to no post changes. Free League games. Next comment. I fear this episode you finally crossed the line and you'll have to change the entire list of techniques in the whole game. Yeah. If you go with the insta crit system, that's definitely the case. At first, you guys talked about mostly changing GM facing mechanics, but now enough of the core mechanics were tweaked that the player facing part will be completely incomprehensible. That's scary in terms of how feasible what you're doing will become, because after changing everything, you'll probably need a lot of playtesting. Yeah. That's why your comment is why I changed the title of this episode of Have We Gone Too Far? Because we can get caught up in the freaking moment.
Yeah, we can.
And I replied, this is why I developed threat as damage method instead of just deleting damage altogether. Keeps the core system of the book, but most people I talk to think the damage system needs some simplicity. So making every hit a biting hit, or as the book defines, a critical hit, makes sense to many people. We wrote down both systems. We'll see how they work in playtest. And he replies, I do agree it needs simplicity. Currently, the GM has to track 3 health bars for every adversary in the game. As players rank up, they tear through minions. So building a deadly encounter calls for more adversities in the field, and it gets increasingly fiddly to keep track of everything. I totally agree with that. But I do worry how feasible this project can get. Yeah, we're in episode 10.
Yeah.
And we finally went, wait a minute, what are we doing?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think it's still feasible. It just needs, like, it would need a lot more support. You know what I mean?
So this is
but it already kind of needs a lot of support.
So this is,
it's a catch-22.
This is the last thing, and I kind of like this. Something I've been willing to test is to make enemy strife a collective morale pool, where they get debuffs as strife increases and disbands when it tops.
See, I like that idea. So that is basically the idea in mass battle, right? They have a morale rating, and you can break the morale. I don't mind that idea in combat, but it feels almost insurmountable in certain cases to break that threshold, right? To get an enemy group so much strife that they no longer want to fight with the current rule set, because the NPCs that matter are going to have such a high amount of composure that getting them enough strife to really break them is going to be very difficult. You'd have to have characters designed to be strife manufacturing plants to dump on the NPC in order for them to feel like they could do that. But having like a pool, I like that idea. It's a very creative idea to like have a pool where at a certain point, because every NPC should have some kind of self-preservation instinct to like, oh, 2 of my friends just got horribly mutilated. I should run now. Like that makes sense to me, right?
So when we did minions, I said, hey, if you do like 1 point of strife to a minion, they run away. And I mean, maybe that's good. Maybe it's not. Maybe minions should have a strife pool that is like all of their strife together averaged or something. And adversaries have their own strife. Maybe. I don't know. I gotta mull this over. I gotta think about it. I gotta
it can get complicated, like I said, because managing strife on the player side of things is already a lot to like grok, just to keep yourself from having your character get into a compromised state. And then adding in the idea that you could try to start manipulating, like I kind of intuit it because I played my first real character in this edition was a character who affected strife. Like the whole balance of that character was around affecting strife for themselves and other people. I don't know that everybody's going to have that same like comfortability or comfort with that idea of managing not only your strife but trying to as a group manage affecting an enemy's strife in the same way. I think Sasha has picked up on it pretty well because her character also tries to like put strife on people, try to intimidate them and browbeat them into doing things.
Yeah.
Which lends itself to this kind of idea of like you being able to do that and see the effect of I'm putting pressure on these people and they're finally going to break after a certain point. I think it's a great idea. It just, I think it probably can get overwhelming for people. Like, I don't know that Matt ever thinks about, put it that way. Like, I don't know that Matt or your like average player is going to be like really thinking about how well they can strife out their opponents to get them to break morale. And
right.
But that might not be for everybody, right? Like some players have different focuses, and you know, like you said, we probably want to put some type into thinking.
We gotta put some thought into it. But I do like the idea. I have a comment, not a comment, but a chat on YouTube. I'm wondering if people don't like the crunchiness of the current system in its own right. There are places where it's too crunchy and places where it's not crunchy enough. I think the balance is off a little. In my like when it's interesting because I see people like not liking the current edition of 7C second edition, and that is as little crunchy as you can get. And they
the
like,
least
I like
amount of
using
crunch
this and
possible.
playing 7C, or this system to play 7C because it's more like first edition. First edition had a good balance of crunch versus
Fluff.
drama, right?
Yeah.
And here
I mean, it was pretty crunchy.
they tried to split the difference as well. Because personally, I think 7C second edition, I love that system.
Yeah.
But it is very different than what you're used to.
Yeah.
I have a video about it. If you go back, it's I think it's like 5 years old, 6 years old at this point.
You should update.
Yeah, make a little update. But that's basically, I think some systems in this version are a little too complex and needs to be simplified, and some things they just don't fit very well. They're just not, they don't do the correct theming that it needs, like intrigue rules is the one that
Yeah.
I just don't like at all. Mind you, I'm not a big fan of the mass battle rules, but apparently I'm kind of alone on this. So many people say that they really do enjoy the mass battle rules, that they think
Gen Con, when I went to Gen Con last year, people were like really interested in the mass battle interactive format, and I've talked to some other people who also are interested in, or like whose first experience with L5R was Fantasy Flight L5R.
Yeah.
And they also seem to be interested in the mass battle interactive and like the way that it works. I think it's a little lackluster. I think it tried to do something interesting but didn't commit all the way to it, and in some ways committed way too hard to it. And it just doesn't feel as natural. It give you that immediate, like, my character is important to this battle, unless the GM makes it that way. And I think that Heroes of Rokugan did a great job in making player characters feel valuable in their interpretation of the mass combat rules. And that might be feeding some people who are like real big into the L5R scene with Heroes of Rokugan and stuff. That might be making them feel more confident about the rules than they really are in just Raw.
So I ran Regret of Sin, which is on my sister channel Dead Unicorn Live, which is now defunct. I've folded it into this channel, but you can still go watch the Let's Plays over there. The Let's Plays, the actual plays. And we did Regret of Sin, which ends in a big mass battle. And I tried to stay pretty, I tried at first. I gave people their army and their cohorts, and I let them go. And the first thing they did, all of the players did, was go off the rails. They did not want to follow the rules that were given, and instead play to the strengths of their characters. For example, the first thing one of the guys wanted to do is like, well, I want to take this enemy gate. So I'm going to sneak behind enemy lines and assassinate some people. And there's nothing in mass battle about that or doing any of that.
Yeah.
So I had to start making up rules on the fly and just kind of like going with where my players went rather than, because what am I going to do? Say, no, you can't do that because the mass battle rules don't. That would be really not fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, my Shugenja were like, I want to change the terrain so these people can't move to where they need to move. Whereas in the mass battle rules, it says anybody can move wherever they want and can't. It doesn't matter what the terrains are. Like like there's a huge disconnect between.
There's dissonance there.
Yeah, between playing a battle simulator and playing your character, and I think that. There's got to be some middle ground there. That said, there's a lot of people that say I'm wrong and that the mass battle rules are great and that they really love how it works. And so I can't say that they're wrong. I can't say that, their experience is invalid.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is valid um, like enjoyment to be found in those rules if you are a battle simulation kind of person, where logistics and troop dispersals and like if you have a big like war table to like move things around on, and you can see the battle kind of culminating through the process. I think there is some serious fun to be had in that. I think your majority of your like more narratively focused characters or players with that mindset are going to get very bored very quickly by it, and they're going to reach out for creative solutions that don't have rules for them, and that is going to cause problems for people.
To me, it feels like Starship battle rules in space RPGs, where it's like, hey, we're all aboard our tramp freighter and we're being attacked by TIE fighters. I am going to, every round, do the repair roll to repair the ship, and that's what I do this turn. And the other guy,
and my friend does the pew pew
every round to like it's yeah.
And that's really what it feels like, because older editions had this feeling of like there is a mass battle going on around you, but you are the individual soldier that is making the difference, because you make a roll and then you have a cool dramatic scene that happens in the flow of the battle, and that can change the tides for your army or whatever.
Yeah.
And some older editions had just roll wounds, and you take that many wounds every round because you're in a battle with a bunch of fucking swords flying at your face. So
oh my god, surviving. We had a party wipe. We had a party wipe from everybody takes X amount of wounds from mass battle, and that was it. We were all dead. And then the game master.
And then it was like, never mind, that's a dream. Let's rewind that.
This is stupid. We're not using these rules anymore. Mind you, that was 4th edition Legend of the Five Rings from AEG. No.
Yeah.
A lot of people, that's their favorite. Bad. For a lot of people, that's their favorite edition. And there's a lot of great stuff in the 4th edition. But Mass Battle was not
one of them.
No. Let me continue with this comment. Hold on. Oh my god, what am I doing? There's a little more to this comment.
Okay.
Where was I? Oh, there's just one more comment here. That's all. So somebody says, I think it's definitely better. I think threat is definitely better than damage, but the word that came to mind to me was exertion, just throwing it out there. I mean, that's a fair word too. Maybe you can standardize the fatigue, but add it depending on the weapon and the martial arts skill level being used. The lethality of some weapons is definitely too low. The Tetsubo doesn't make sense at all. Yeah, we talked about the Tetsubo and how it, you know, it's a Nerf bat basically.
Yeah, who cares if you're getting crushed underneath the weight of a giant Tetsubo? It probably is gonna be fine.
It's gonna be. You're all, you know, you just lost a couple strands of hair. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. You're good.
The roll too hot should also be modified by the weapon and armor used. The heavier weapon should be more difficult. That or make it so that using the weapon also fatigues the user. I thought about this, like in my how I described combat in L5R. I made the criticism that you only get fatigue on defense. Has nobody ever heard of a rope-a-dope?
Yeah.
You target you tire the attacker out, and then once they're tired out, you go in for the kill, right? I was surprised when I noticed that no armor raises the roll to hit. I mail it. I assume that's a typo. I make it so that my players can add such a trait if they have a high level of smithing. Maybe even add a trait that lowers critical hits by 1 or 2. I'm just trying to diversify it. It seems too straightforward to me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that armor not affecting the ability for somebody to critical strike you is kind of strange. That's kind of what armor is there for, to not to absorb, just absorb the blow, because a lot of times if you get hit with a hammer and you're wearing plate mail, the hammer is probably the most effective weapon to use against you, because they're going to knock your ass out and then they're going to be able to stab you through the plates, right? That's how knights really fought conflict with each other, not with swords, but with like big pole hammers and pole axes, or Lucine hammers and stuff. But like the ability to do lethal damage to somebody is definitely hampered by the amount of armor they're wearing. That's the whole point, to slow down. So it just giving you like less fatigue to take every round is strange. Was always strange to me. Like I thought that was a very strange decision. Why it wouldn't affect. Like I get why they didn't want it to be harder to hit somebody, because like I can still hit you with armor on. It doesn't make it harder to hit you, but it does make it harder for me to do serious damage.
So long time ago,
that was a missed opportunity.
A long time ago, when this game first kind of came out, I talked to my Discord peeps about armor, and I said, doesn't wearing armor like and dodging all the time cause fatigue and not make it easier to fend, like, because you're gaining fatigue to defend against somebody, and here armor is reducing the amount of fatigue you get. And I thought that was weird, and I said, shouldn't armor instead be like, you know how it's two opportunity for a critical hit, right? I was like, well, why shouldn't it just be one opportunity for a critical hit? If you're wearing light armor, it's 2, and you're wearing medium armor, it's 3, and heavy armor, it's 4. It's harder to like critically hit you the more armor you wear, because armor protects your little soft fleshy bits, and if you don't make the correct amount of opportunities, you don't get the correct opportunity to get on in there, find that place in the armor, the chink in the armor to hit flesh. And I got pushback on that. They were like, no, you don't understand. You're using your armor to your best advantage, so you don't have to defend as. I mean, you don't have to parry with a sword as because their attack will bounce off your arm guard or your chest armor or whatnot, and so you don't have to spend as much defending yourself because of that armor. And like, both are true, kinda, but
yeah,
you can.
But I think there's a game balance issue to saying that armor just makes it hard, like straight up. The TN to get somebody a critical strike is just harder to do, because then like everybody's wearing heavy armor, or your low level characters are never going to be able to critically injure like a heavily armored opponent. So there could be some game balance issues there, but I don't mind that idea of like it's just straight up harder to lethally inflict wounds against somebody who's in a lot of armor.
Well, here's the thing. That doesn't matter. What you just said, not the TN, but the amount of opportunity that a low level character will never be doing that because they wear heavy armor. You just fatigue them out and they go incapacitated, and then it's always a critical hit.
Yeah, and then you're finding all
so a low level character can do that as long as they wear their opponent out with fatigue.
Yeah. But I mean, it's an arms race at that point. You know what I mean? Everybody's gonna want heavy armor. Everybody's gonna be playing the classes that get the heavy armor.
Here's the thing: if you reduce fatigue to 0, right? If you wear heavy armor that reduces an attack down to 0, then the person who attacks you, if they have a razored edge weapon, that weapon gets damaged.
Yeah.
So why isn't that a case right now where everybody is trying to make sure they have the best armor on so they can destroy their enemy weapons? I don't think this tracks. I
think there's also other things like encumbrance, cumbersome weapons and cumbersome armor. It's like if you're wearing cumbersome armor and you're wielding a cumbersome weapon, then you like can't even move an attack or do anything like that. You can just like, so there's mitigating factors here. I agree, but I just feel like there's got to be a better way to handle armor in this game.
Maybe. But I want to bring
Like
it down to
if it is just adding opportunities to do critical strike, I think that's a like a very reasonable
I think
possible
so.
solution.
Like, if you're not wearing armor, it's going to be really easy to do a critical strike on you, one opportunity. If you're wearing a like light armor, Ashigaru armor, 2. If you're wearing that medium armor, it's 3, which isn't out of. But if you're wearing like your full heavy armor that's got everything like covered and everything, it's 4. It's going to be nigh impossible for people to hit flesh on you because it's designed to do that. And and maybe there's a penalty to wearing that armor. Maybe I think there is a penalty. Let me look up armor right now.
It's cumbersome. Yeah, it's called cumbersome.
It's called cumbersome. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I went way too far. Armor. List of armors. Yeah, they get the cumbersome
lacquered and
armor.
plated armor.
Mm-hmm. Lacquered and plated armor get cumbersome.
And they're really expensive. Like, good luck ever getting 40 koku on your character. Like, you're someone...
While wearing cumbersome armor, increase the TN of your check to maneuver in your environment, such as movement actions by 1. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I don't know why it's just maneuver, like... Or such as movement action. So it would be all movement actions plus others that the game master thinks are appropriate.
And if you moved, the TN of attack actions using a cumbersome weapon are increased by 1.
Yes. So there are penalties for wearing such highly protective armor. But
and wielding big weapons.
But I mean, it's physical 5. So if you're wearing physical 5, right, and someone uses a katana against you, and they don't get extra damage,
bonus successes, or,
they
any kind of extra.
It's gonna reduce to 0, and they're gonna be damaging their weapon on you. It's just how it is.
Yep, I know how that is because Kuranagi used a dagger on someone, and it just damaged their dagger, and they were freaked out because that's a very special dagger. Yeah, don't want to lose that. That puts the fear of God and fear of the kami into him. Yeah.
Okay. That's it for comments. I mean, our comments always take 30 minutes because we're always chatting. I think we're making good progress. Like, not just. I think we're making good progress on the rules. I think we're making good progress on the rules by looking at these comments and like talking about them. But hey, we have a document. Let's see here. Yeah, there it is. We have a document that you can get if you're part of the Patreon that details all of the rules. You can make suggestions to these if you're part of it too, and we will put you in the credits on it as a patron editor. So we're going to go back down to these 2 combat things that we have. The My Combat system, which is the threat system, and the what's it called? The optional threat fatigue system, and where's yours? I don't see. Oh, the direct damage system. And I'm going to talk to you again here, Tarek. What do you think of these? What should we go forward with? I mean, we're going to keep both of these here as like kind of, optional damage systems that people can kind of build off of. But what, like, is the direct damage system? It does simplify things, but is it something we want to pursue, knowing that we're going to have to go through each and every special ability in this book and make adjustments to it? Yeah, that is the question. I think the threat fatigue system is fine because what it does is it just gets rid of the damage block under weapons. So, it just, yes, all weapons do the same damage, but they don't do the same deadliness critical threshold. but it does get rid of. But I mean, how much is it more difficult to defend against a knife than it, or to defend against a katana than it is a knife? Or is a katana more deadly than a knife? Or is a tetsubo less deadly than a katana, but is harder to defend with? Like how much more fatigue does it take to defend off a hammer than it does a katana or a naginata? Like, I would say that damage, i.e. threat, doesn't need to be a stat on a weapon.
I mean, from a gameplay point of view, I agree. It doesn't necessarily need to get bogged down in all of these different minutiae. There is a reason why swords and like long swords specifically were a favored kind of sidearm for people, because of its flexibility and ease of use and the ability to like deal a good amount of damage in a very swift manner without putting yourself at risk for being counterattacked. Like a sword versus a hammer, the sword is probably going to win most of the time because of its effective range and its ability to target different areas of the body and hand protection and all this stuff. Well, so from like a realistic fencing point of view, I get why you'd want to like maybe capture some of that.
I think they did it. I think they might have necessary. I think they might have done that in reverse though then, because the reason you want a long sword over a short sword is reach, right? Yeah. So a long sword threatens more of an area, so you would say you'd have to defend more against a long sword. But that's not the case. A long sword makes it easier for you to defend yourself at that longer range, so that the short sword can't get at you. Exactly. So both people...
It means you can put the threat on your opponent at a further distance, so they have to figure out a way to break that threat line.
So a longer range actually gives you more threat resistance rather than extra threat.
Well, it kind of does both, and your opponent has to be more skilled to beat that threat, right? You have to be. If I have a short, single-edged weapon, and you have a double-edged longsword, you're going to be putting me at much higher threat, much further out, and I'm going to have to be way more.
I don't believe
like capable to.
I don't believe. No. I don't think that person is at much greater threat than if both of you had knives. I think if you both had knives, you'd both be at the same threat. But the only reason you're at greater threat for a longer weapon is because the other guy is at less threat. Not because you still have to defend the same amount. I would say. I would think.
Yeah. You still need a...
No matter what, you're still defending at the same amount. If a guy has a 5-foot spear, you're still like defending yourself at the same amount. But you can't attack back. You can't threaten back. And that I think is the problem.
Your threat is less impactful. Yeah.
Yes. So that's kind of what I'm seeing here. But I'm not going to put in rules where weapons give their own damage resistances. That I think we're going a little too far overboard.
Well, that's what I'm saying is gamifying those mechanics is like a fool's errand in some degree, because does it really matter to get caught? Like if we were trying to make a fencing game, then yeah, maybe that's an important part of it. But we're just trying to make a game that feels fun and is snappy enough to keep combat flowing and not get bogged down. And so gamifying those mechanics and simplifying them, I think, is the natural thing to do here.
Yeah. So here's the question. So then
the thing is, I also like the direct damage system, because it kind of captures that idea of we're all playing with very deadly stabby bits and sharp edges.
Oh yeah.
And take those things very seriously, because you can lose an arm or a leg.
The direct damage system has that simplicity to it. It's easy to understand. It's easy to understand what's going on when you roll and when you do when you do a hit. It's so easy. You get rid of that whole damage, threat, fatigue bullshit, which I mean that helps out too. It takes out all of that. So yeah. I understand why it tied for first place with that, with keeping the rules as the same. I totally get it, because people are like, yeah, just why can't this just do this? And like, that speaks to me. But then we have, like I said, we have changes, we're going to have to start retooling the entire book. And we're going to have to make sure that we somehow don't get that downward spiral of damage where it's just like one hit takes somebody out for the entire combat. And then what do they, I mean, that definitely can happen with such a system where it's just like, you're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least you will be rendered non-useful because you have so many penalties on you.
Yeah, less and less effective until you're completely useless. Yeah.
Right.
This is a hard decision. I mean, if we're looking to not have to make like a massive amount of changes, then we should definitely just rule out direct damage, because techniques will have to change, items will have to change, and there will need to be balance changes for both the GM side and player side, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot to tweak out there and make work. There's probably the critical hit and threat chart stuff is going to become more of a forefront of the game, and we're going to have to manage that and those expectations, and how that implements into like duels and different types of engagements will also be important, because does it live up to its name in a mass combat? You know what I mean?
Right.
Is it easier to deal with a intermediary stat like fatigue in that situation? Which probably yes. Having fatigue in that situation is probably more advantageous and easier to kind of deal with. I don't know. Simplifying it with the threat fatigue system, I think it clarifies a lot of things about how combat is handled currently, and that might just be enough. We still probably are going to need to change some things about how certain techniques work to bring it in line with this system, because a lot of techniques extend things like added damage or damage reduction or stuff like that. So those might need to be tweaked a little bit, but it's probably less of a dramatic shift to go with that system than trying to re-overhaul how we think about damage and bringing all the techniques. We could have simply say remove techniques entirely that don't have anything to do with critical damage, but that would probably feel limiting because that drops the amount of techniques and available options.
I think a lot of people want us to take a stab at heart piercing strike, pun intended.
Yeah.
And try and balance that, because like that technique right off the bat says fatigue doesn't matter now, and we're just going to do the critical hit straight up.
Yeah.
And
I mean that is the core of basically direct damage system, right?
Yeah, everything's a heart piercing strike.
Everything's a heart piercing strike. Everything.
Oh.
You're doing full threat. Like you're not pulling any punches.
So let's talk about So I think we're good. Like we're not gonna start changing things. We're just gonna leave the direct damage system there as like an optional system. We're gonna leave the threat fatigue system there as an optional system, and we're just gonna keep going. And that is our.
And we might backfill.
We might go back. Yeah. But let's actually talk about the critical hit system in Legend of the Five Rings. Let us go to page. Where is it? Where am I going?
Harm and healing.
Yeah, we got to go to not condition. Here we go. The critical suffering, critical strikes. So I think this table needs definitely needs to be improved.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Let's do that today. Let's make a new critical hit table. Why is everything I'm doing orange? Stop that. None. No orange. None. I don't want that. Let's make a new critical hit table. Let's, I guess.
Let me insert a table for you.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
It needs two rows and...
Yeah, while you do that, I'm going to pull up another document here. I'm going to pull up the Fantasy Flight version of Star Wars because I really, really like their critical hit system. I don't know why they didn't just move that over. So let's see if I can't find it. Edge of the Empire beginner game. I know I have a copy of it. I better have a copy of it because I don't want to. There's the Rebellion game. I could use the Age of Rebellion. Here we go. Edge of Empire. This is the one everybody plays anyways. Nobody plays Age of Rebellion. By the way, we're also on Moonbeam, and Moonbeam's going into their open beta soon, but you can get, you can use my, in the description, there's a thingamabobber, an invite for you to go and check out Moonbeam.
Yeah, take a look. It's a fascinating system.
And I'm going to be doing more and more on Moonbeam. Maybe I'll do something exclusive to Moonbeam this week. I was thinking of doing a miniature painting stream, and I was like, maybe I'll just do that over on Moonbeam and tell everybody to come on over there and watch me paint a miniature, if that's something. I don't know. I need to paint minis.
Miniatures.
Where is... Okay, I gotta find this real quick. Critical hits, our page. GEDC. Critical...
GED.
Crippling blow. Critical hits. Critical injuries. 243, 216, and 243. It's critical injuries, 216. Boom. Okay. I'm going to show you guys this table here from the Star Wars role-playing game. Boom. There it is. It's up. So basically, this is how this works. You get when you get critically hit, you roll a D100, and whatever that is what you get. And there's all these little ones like minor nick and distracted and off balance, and it kind of just goes up little by little. But you don't die unless you get over like 130 is like suddenly you're now bleeding out or the end of nigh or is dead. And what happens if for every critical hit you take, you get, I think, +5 to your D100 roll. Mind you, each weapon can also increase your D100 roll as well. And I was thinking we could use this and kind of take it and redo our critical strike by severity and kind of use it with this critical injury table here. There's gonna be no D100, mind you. It's still gonna be by severity, but like for every critical hit you take, you get like +3 to the next to the severity of the next critical hit or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's gonna be great. I think that's gonna be how this kind of should work. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if you think that's not.
Looking at this and thinking I might need a bigger table. I only gave you 8 rows to deal
It's
with. We
okay.
can add more.
We probably don't have time to do more than. I mean, we only have 10 minutes left in this dang stream because we've been talking about how much we're second guessing ourselves and what we really want in the game and everything like that, which is good. I mean, we needed to sit back and we needed to talk about those kinds of things
And reflect. Yeah.
We did need. That's what this one stream is about. Is kind of about reflecting. But yeah, I'm going to go back to the main book here. And hey, it'll give everybody 2 weeks, because I think next week we're going to do the high matches. I love you too, buddy. What's going on? Are you hungry? We'll get you lunch pretty soon. Don't worry about it. Where was I? Oh yeah, because next week we have to do the review of Celestial.
Yeah.
The Phoenix book.
Celestial
Realms. That's right. The tea company, Celestial Tea. No, Celestial Realms. We want to do the review of our last L5R book that we never did. We got to do Celestial Realms, and that's going to be next week.
The Essential Guides to the Spirit Realm.
So let's go to. I gotta hit the take button. Okay, there it is. There it is. Severity. So at severity 0, let's just say severity 0. The description is you fend off the critical hit.
Yeah.
Fend off the critical hit. Nothing happens. Mechanic. No, there is an effect. There's a small effect, which is +3 to the severity of the next critical hit. You fend off.
I'd say within a turn.
Everything is going to be +3 to the next. Everything's going to have that rule, and it
okay.
And it I think it stacks. Hold on. You fend off the next critical hit, but you are set up to take a bigger one next time. Plus to the severity of all critical hits this scene. Right. So like a 1 to 2, or where's the cutoff point here on this? Is on 2. So 1 to 2 should be like, where are we going with this? Minor nick, slowed down, sudden jolt, distracted. I mean, 1 to 2 should be kind of the armor hit, right? Your armor's damage kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your armor absorbs the blow, and if you wear no armor, something should happen if you wear no armor. This little boy. I know, you're so cute.
If you wear no armor, I would say if you wear no armor, add 3 to this or not add 3, just stage it up to the next critical strike.
No. I think if you get it down to 0, there is no effect. There should be no effect, right? No effect.
Mm-hmm.
Effect. But absorbs your blow. If you wear no armor, your next critical hit is worse. So this one is your armor is damaged, or plus 3 to all critical hits for the rest of the scene. That, I think, that works. Yeah, if you get down to 0, there's no effect. You're good. You're a happy boy. You're a happy boy. A happy boy. So then we go to 3 to 5. And then you get a light wound. You are minorly injured. You have you gain a, what's it called? Is it called a minor wound, or is it, does it have a different name?
Lightly wounded.
You gain lightly wounded. Yeah. Wounded in the ring of your current stance. And +3 to all critical hits for the rest of the scene. And then, oh man, debilitating gash. This should be flesh wound, and this is debilitating gash. Right. And then 5 to 6. It really is only 5 to 6. 5 to 6. That's it.
3 to 5. So then we should say 6 to 8.
Huh. I don't know. Well, yeah, as everything gets +3 to all critical hits, I think it should kind of scale up.
Yeah.
Or
3.
maybe it should be
6,
+2.
9.
I think +2 is better. We'll do +2 to all critical hits. But yeah, each critical hit thrust range should be a little longer.
So then this should be 3 to 4, and then 4 to 6.
Yeah, but maybe they should be 5 to 6. But maybe they should be a little longer, since we're stretching out these with +2 to everything. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, we can deal with the severity calculation later.
Sure.
Because it's also going to be based on the weapons severities, right? It could be modified by the weapon severity.
Sure.
Calculations.
Severely. That's how you spell that. So mainly, I think we're just adding here +2 to all critical hits for the rest of the scene. I think the lower end here needed to be changed. Because at 0, like, you still get your armor damaged, which is weird. But yeah. I think if you bring it down to 0, then there should be nothing, like, everything goes away.
Yeah, if you bring it down to 0, nothing happens. If you get it to 1 or 2, you're not at a huge risk of anything. You're not going to take bleeding or anything like that. But your armor got clipped, your clothing is damaged, or whatever.
So
or you're set up for, like, you have put yourself in a position where the next attack coming at you is going to be way more severe.
So here's the thing: do you think we should go down to granular levels? Like, a 1 is a glancing blow that destroys your armor, a 2 gives you some fatigue, a 3 gives you or strife, or a 3 gives you a flesh wound, a 4 gives you a flesh wound plus some strife. Like, do we need to get?
I don't think we need to get that granular unless we were going with the direct damage rules. Like, the direct damage rules, I think, need that
granularity. Yeah.
Because you need more room for a PC to have cushion.
So basically,
but with the current rules, I think we can keep similarly the critical strike chart. I do think some of them should change, and there should be more options for things that happen. So, but I think that should be between 3 and 12. There should be more options there.
So what about the bleeding condition for razored edged weapons? I
Well,
mean,
so
we did change
7 to
bleeding.
8 is where bleeding comes in.
We did change bleeding to be less bad. Like
Yes.
let's go to bleeding real quick here. Document take bleeding, burning, bleeding. Every round, a character takes 1 fatigue unless they spend an opportunity on their action or take no other action other than stifle bleeding. If unconscious, the character will take 1 fatigue as normal. If their fatigue equals or doubles their endurance, they gain dying 1. If a character takes a critical strike, the severity is increased by 5, removed as normal in the book. So, yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think everything can keep bleeding.
Yeah, we made bleeding better. Like,
Yeah.
less intense. Bleeding
Less
should be
intense at the early stages and more intense later on.
Well, here's the thing. If you are bleeding and are incapacitated, if you're in
and someone else isn't tending to you, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're incapacitated, which means you are fatigued, we've renamed incapacitated fatigued, right? If you are quote unquote fatigued, you're not taking quote unquote damage or threat that you have to defend against. You're just taking fatigue. So you're not taking a critical hit every turn. You're not doing that. Right? It's just that if you're
if that fatigue level stacks up to double your endurance,
then you're dying. Exactly. Yeah. Then you're in the shit.
Yeah, and if you're bleeding and unconscious, you take a critical strike, you're already so severely wounded that you should be taking a very serious, very deadly attack.
So if you put yourself in a position, basically what bleeding does is kind of like nick at you a little bit every once in a while. But if you don't take care of it and you put yourself in that dangerous situation, it will bite you in the butt, which is, I think that what makes that rule great.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that it encourages you to get to the back line and seek healing, or put yourself at risk. It's high risk, high reward of put yourself at risk in order to try to end the fight so that you can get full treatment.
Right.
That is the gamble that you're putting yourself into.
I think that's fair.
And I think that's fair. Yeah.
So we don't have to change any of the wounded rules. Razor edge can cause bleeding. Anything can cause bleeding now, and we're okay. Okay. So put your comments, if you're watching this as a recorded stream, tell us how you would change the critical hit table. I think just keeping it how it is and adding that +2 to all crits and then making the close call have no effect. I think that changes. I think that's the biggest change. And I think that makes it much, much better. You tell me.
I think we can also add some padding here, but we can probably take a look at that next time we get together and fill out the rest of this chart with stuff that is what we feel might be more impactful.
And what you feel. I want you to write down your comments on what you think of the critical hit chart, what you think needs to be added there, all of that kind of stuff. I want to hear from you. Thank you for watching this as a live stream. Johnny, let's go. Let's go home and turn it off now because we're all done. Next week, we're going to be doing the review of Celestial Realms. And then the week after, we're going to come back and we're going to continue this rewrite.
I'll see if Sasha wants to get in on that Celestial Realms one, because I'm sure she has a lot to say, because it has her favorite class ever in it.
Oh, okay. Sounds great. And it's got the Centipede clan in it.
Kitsu. Yeah, it does.
And then tonight is Shadow Empire. We are resuming. It's the second episode of the first season. Actual play, Legend of the Five Rings. Tonight, we'll see you there. So, from Tarek, my name is Corey. Go roll some dice.